Good evening again, everybody. Well, it's been almost a month since the federal election, and what an interesting election result that was. For me, it is not simply the fact that Australians voted for a change of government. It's also evident of a strong desire to build a new future for our country, a future based on community participation and the common good. The pandemic made many of us realize that there was something fundamentally flawed with a system that neglects the care economy. So it cannot be business as usual in terms of the big picture issues like diversity, equity, justice, and sustainability. There is a sense in which we have arrived at a critical moment, which demands our courage to move into a new way of being together and with the planet. We gather this evening as people of faith and commitment to shape the future of this country in accordance with the kingdom vision of Jesus. Inspired by the gospel, we join our fellow citizens in working towards a just and equitable society, one that is characterized by respect for its First Nations peoples and a fair treatment of refugees and people seeking asylum. It's in our DNA as Christians to reach out to fellow human beings in need. It's in our DNA to treat a stranger with dignity, hospitality, and communion. And we are reminded of that wonderful gospel story of the fishes and the loaves for the celebration of Corpus Christi last Sunday. The Bible, and particularly the example of Jesus, is neither silent nor unclear on how we are to welcome the marginalized and the stranger. It's part of who we are as disciples of Jesus. It's the very texture of Christianity. Pope Francis, in his message marking Migrants and Refugees Sunday, makes a passionate appeal for solidarity with those who are forced to flee, like the Holy Family. Against the tide of anti-refugee sentiments across the world, especially during the pandemic, the Pope says that it is not a time of amnesia. Rather, he continues, it is a time to recognize Jesus in those faces, and we will be the ones to thank him for having been able to meet, to love, and to serve him in them. We are challenged to be an alternative community of mercy, inclusion, and human unity. Instead of the label queue jumpers, perhaps we can help the world to see them as our fellow travelers who, like us, are in search of justice, freedom, dignity, and opportunity. Each of us can become critical yeast for critical time by virtue of our commitment, dedication, and shared leadership. In this way, we can create a movement and a coalition of concerned citizens that challenges the inaction, the inertia of the political class from above, or perhaps the apathy and the compassion fatigue from below. As Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us that the arc of justice is long, but it tends towards justice. We must not give in to the myth of the futility of our resistance, of our efforts. The Balawila family is a proof that love does win over cruelty, at least over the long run. The example of the early Christian community spurs us on, for they understood the significance of being fundamentally a countercultural phenomenon in how they lived, how they related to each other, how they welcomed outsiders and shared resources with them. It was a community that supported and cared for the most vulnerable. It was a community of unity in diversity, radical equality, and inclusion, where all boundaries was transcended. They showed to the world that it was possible to live with brotherly concern, compassion, and communion. The church today must honor this founding memory by its radical outreach and witness. We are inspired to be a kinder, a more inclusive, a more caring alternative society. The kingdom vision of Jesus guides us as we endeavor to be a community that serves as an antidote to the politics of fear and the culture of self-protection in our society. I am particularly encouraged by many Catholics, young and old, who have a heightened consciousness of social justice and solidarity with the marginalized. I'm confident that we'll work together and turn the tide in favor of justice, equity, and compassion. Let us reclaim the welcoming, the generous, the fair income spirit that has shaped the history of this wonderful nation. In the words of Pope Francis, let us endeavor to replace the culture of fear and indifference with that of encounter and acceptance. With the men and women of goodwill, we build a better Australia and a better world. May our endeavor to replace that culture of fear and indifference with the culture of encounter and solidarity be brought to fulfillment in accordance with God's vision of the fullness of life for all of us and all of his creation. Thank you.